This is Anthony Iannarino, and you're listening to In the Arena.
Step into the arena. Give it all that you got. Into the arena. It's time to make it your best shot. Chase the dream and break the scene. Your opportunity is right here. It's right here. It's right now. Welcome to my arena.
When I had a chance to catch up with the legendary Brian Tracy, I was in England speaking to my friends at Travel Counselors, and Brian had just returned from a, get this, 13-country, 36-day world tour. Brian Tracy is simply a force of nature. He pulled himself up from nothing through sales, and he's built a speaking, coaching, consulting, and training organization that is literally second to none. Last year, Brian published 4 books. You heard that right, 4 in 2013 alone, including Unlimited Sales Success, the book that I asked him to come on to the podcast to speak about. And he's long been one of my role models. I asked Brian to talk about why sales management is the critical role in producing sales results, what customers really want, even though I know some of you believe it's price, how you are making price the issue, the importance of self-esteem and optimism and self-confidence, and we have a little bit of fun with that, and why it's your job to help people in their life and in their work. That's really how you become consultative. And finally, in just a few minutes, I asked Brian to speak about one of his good friends that we lost last year, Zig Ziglar. So without further ado, here is the legendary Brian Tracy.
I've heard your story, and I've heard you tell your story a number of times, but for people who don't know your story, can you share a little bit about how you got started in sales? And then I know that you led a team, and I don't know that a lot of people know the story about you leading a team in a sales management role. Can you share some of your stories there and the results that you produced?
Sure. Well, I got into sales like most people accidentally. I say sales is a default profession in that nobody goes forward into it. We go into it when nothing else is working. And so most people find themselves in sales accidentally, which is what happened to me. When I couldn't get a laboring job, the only way I could feed myself was to sell on straight commission. And other people start off more prestigiously and join companies and receive training and everything else. But I fell into it. And then falling into it, I struggled until I learned that all sales skills are learnable and that there's a professional selling process. And if you don't use a professional selling process, same as not using a recipe, then you don't make any sales. And if you do, you do. And that transformed my life. And then I became so successful, I became a sales supervisor and then a sales manager. And I eventually built sales forces in 6 countries with 95 salespeople, each of whom I recruited personally and trained personally, and then managed over a period of months and years to build a very successful multi-million-dollar per month business.
I ask you to share that story because everyone knows you from your speaking work and from your writing work and the work you do around goal setting and motivation. And I don't know that everybody knows about one of the first books that I read from you, which is The Psychology of Selling. And I don't know if they know that background, that you write about this and you speak about it because it's very real to you. And it's something that you have a great depth of experience in, not only doing it as a practitioner, but leading a sales team. So you've seen this but also with hundreds and hundreds of salespeople.
Yes, and I've worked with more than 1,000 large companies and maybe 10,000 small and medium-sized companies. And I've also developed probably the most extensive and complete programs on sales management in the world. According to the top organizations that teach sales management, my 24-part program on the subject is the most comprehensive of all. And I've taken people who have been struggling as sales managers and just really turned them into superstars. And they've then gone on to build great sales teams, very highly productive. Interesting, IBM, when they got into trouble a few years ago, did a famous study with McKinsey and Company and they discovered that the sales manager is the pivotal role within any sales-based corporation. If a company depends upon sales for its success. The sales manager is the commanding officer, the critical factor that determines the success of that business. And this revolutionized IBM. Because up until that time, they had great respect for salespeople and sales managers. They had no idea that the sales manager was the most important. And what they concluded, multi-million-dollar study, was that training the sales manager to be better at his or her job was the very highest payoff investment that the company could make in increasing sales.
I don't have any
short
trouble
term.
believing that.
No.
I don't have any trouble believing that at all. I think it's a leadership role, and if you can lead a team, you can succeed. And people who struggle with the leadership aspect of it struggle to produce the results.
Yes.
I like the commanding officer idea because I think the military is probably the best example. They build leaders.
Yes.
A lot has changed in professional selling, and you've been at this game for 4 decades. But if you just look at, let's say, the last 5 to 10 years, it seems to me that we've had more changes than at any other time. What are the big changes that you've seen, and how do they impact salespeople now?
Well, I just happen to be privy to some of the most current and most important research on this, and the answer is really quite interesting. The whole market has become disintermediated, as you said, and what has happened is that it has two. Instead of having a bell curve in the center, a high curve, where main products are in the center and then cheaper products go out to one end of the tail and expensive products go out to the other, it's disintermediated. So there's basically the transactional sale at one end, it's flat all the way through the center, and then there is the consultative sale at the other end. And the market is split. If you know the product that you want, think Amazon. Go on to Amazon, order one of several 100,000 products. It's delivered within 24 or 48 hours, almost faster than you could get to a store. You want shoes, go to Zappos. You want a book, you want electronics. In other words, you can buy those online, and you can get the best price, best delivery, best everything. At the other end, and this is where the action is, it's where the product has to be customized to the unique special needs, situation, circumstances of the customer. And the salesperson's job is to understand, almost like a medical professional considering surgery of one kind, to understand thoroughly the customer's situation and then to make recommendations for the ideal combination of product, service, price, delivery, everything else for this particular customer. And that is where the big money is in professional selling. Say, this sounds like the work that you're doing with your clients right now, is you're working with companies that are specializing in tailoring and customizing product and service offerings. So they're making them so they're much more tailored for the client, and you can charge more for those products and services and make a higher income, make a higher profit.
I know the rest of the world, though, sees this, and they're so threatened by price. They think that buyers only buy price, and they've been chasing that for so long. But really, the action is, like you described on the other end, where people say, okay, now we've done cheap, and we know that the result is cheap, but we really need better results, and we're willing to pay for those. But we need somebody to help us figure out what to do in order to pay for the results that we really want.
Absolutely. In fact, I just did a complete program yesterday on selling higher priced products against lower priced competition. And all of the different factors, and I accumulated these over the years, there's a whole series of different factors that are more important to the buyer than price. In every single survey, when you ask a customer after they bought the product, why did you buy the product? Price always comes last. It's always the last one. And once a person is clear of the product that they want, of course, they want to get the best deal, but it is never low price that is the decisive factor. It's attractiveness, utility, beauty, reputation, services, support, guarantees, warranties, prices, terms, payment schedules. It's a whole series of other things. Prices always last.
It's funny because when you ask a salesperson why they lost that particular opportunity, price is first. They say,
well, yeah. Well, there's an article I read many years ago. It said most salespeople have what it's called is price neurosis. Is they're hyper about price, and they make price the issue. When in reality, I give an example when I'm talking to an audience. I say, let me prove to you, 1,000 people, and you can do this, by the way, it's fun. I say, let me prove to you that price is not the reason for buying anything. And they all go, oh, you can't do that. I say, let me prove it to you. All right. And I say, now, tell me, is there a single person in this room who has a single item about their person that they purchased solely because it was the lowest price? 1,000 people, nobody raises a hand. Of course not. Price was an issue, but you didn't buy your clothes because they were cheap. You didn't buy your pen because it was cheap. You didn't buy your shoes because they were cheap. You bought them for other reasons, and then you tried to get the best price. And another thing I point out is that people don't want the lowest price because from experience, the lowest price means lowest quality, means breakdown, hassle, disappointment, anger, frustration. I say what people want is a good price, and they want a fair price, and they want a reasonable price and a competitive price and an excellent price and a great price, but they don't want the lowest price. And your job is to show them that all things considered, the price that you charge is the ideal price. It's the right price for this item. And if that wasn't true,
for the value that we create.
Exactly. And if that were not true, then nothing expensive would ever sell. It's real simple.
And I just read a month ago, Mercedes had its very best month ever in the history of the company.
There you go. There you go.
So
and look at Apple. Apple charges premium prices. Their goal is 50% markup, net profit on every on every product, and they hold the prices. And they sell tens of billions of dollars worth of extremely highly profitable items at high prices.
I want to shift gears, and I want to go to your new book, Unlimited Sales Success. And I want to start where you started with that, because I think that it starts with mindset, and then it gets to skills, and then it gets to tools. And in my experience, a lot of people fail in sales not because they can't sell, but because they won't sell. And they've got these mental roadblocks that keep them from succeeding and keep them from taking action and being capable of what you and I would recognize they were capable of if they got past the psychological barriers. Can you speak to a little bit about the psychology that underlies the mindset here and how people start to make that shift?
Well, the main block to sales success is the fear of rejection, what we call reluctance. Is people are afraid of hearing the word no. And there's a whole body of research on this, all the different things that people are afraid of, the different types of call reluctance, status call reluctance, price call reluctance, and so on. So the very best work that I've seen in the last little while is in what is called go for no. In other words, aggressively and seek out the word no. Instead of burying it like a whip or a lash, aggressively get people to say no. Because the more people say no, the more they will say yes. There's a direct relationship, it seems, between the number of no's you get and the number of sales you make. So instead of being afraid of the word no, you should be happy with the word no, because every word no is getting you closer to a sale. And the more no's you get, the more yeses you get. And once you realize that, and when I started off in selling, a top salesman told me, remember this, rejection is not personal. That's what I've taught forever. It's in my book. Rejection is not personal. They're not rejecting you as a person. They're just simply responding to a commercial offer in a busy world. When they say, I don't want it, I don't need it, I can't use it, I'm not interested, I can't afford it, it has nothing to do with you. Don't take it so darn personally. It's just a normal response that people have who are confronted with 3,000 or 4,000 commercial offers a day. And what you do is you just smile and keep on persisting. Salespeople have to have very high levels of optimism, which is why I talk about the importance of self-esteem and self-confidence, is you have to have the confidence to continue on, even though people initially almost always respond in a negative way.
I'm so happy you got to self-confidence and self-esteem, and I more and more recognize a lot of the reason that people have this price reluctance and the reluctance to make an ask is because it's how they feel about themselves. And so they can't imagine themselves spending this money, so they can't see somebody else spending it, or they don't think they deserve that at some level, so they can't ask for it. And you do a lot of work in your confidence course, as well as Psychology of Selling, about how we feel about ourselves and how important that is. And it feels to me like that's the root. If you have that self-confidence and self-esteem, it's easier for you to just persist and walk through no's and continue to pursue your goal. And if you don't, you really struggle with that.
Yes, well, it's interesting. I have people come up to me all over the world. I just came back from a 13-country tour, 36 days, basically all over the world. I was in China a month ago, and I was in Africa the month before that. This last month, I was all over the Middle East, India, and all over Europe and Russia. And people come up to me and say, you changed my sales career with that one little idea before you go into a sales call, just say to yourself, I like myself. I like myself. I like myself. Just repeat it several times with conviction, and it'll cause you to smile. And you'll go in and you'll be relaxed and smiling, and surprise, surprise, you'll be far more effective. And if you have a negative experience, you just say, hey, I like myself. I like myself. I like myself. And I strongly urge that you teach this to people, because every time you say, I like myself, your self-esteem goes up. And when your self-esteem goes up, your self-confidence goes up, and your self-image improves, and you have more energy, and you feel happier about yourself, and you're much more effective in a sales situation.
I have a similar exercise, and I ask people to reflect on the successes that they've had in helping other people before they go into a sales interaction, because they can create value. They have created value, and they're going to create value. But it's the mindset of going in, have the value, and I am going to succeed, and I really, truly can help people. That helps them that through that. I love the I like myself, because I think I can picture so many people struggling to say that to themselves because they've never said that to themselves before. And hearing you say it as easily as you say it probably makes some people listening go, wow, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
Have you had people resist that?
Yeah, well, the thing is, people love that idea of just saying, I like myself. I love myself. I feel great. I always teach my audiences from the very beginning, say, I like myself. I love my work. I like myself. I love my work, because all successful people like themselves and love their work. And one of the things which I think is most helpful for any sales audience is to realize your job is to be a helper. Your job is to help people to improve their life and work. And if you focus on how you can help people, you take away the stress of trying to persuade people to do something. Instead, what you do is, like a doctor, you do a very good examination and a diagnosis, so you really understand your potential customer situation, and then you show them how your product or service, all things considered, can really help them improve their life or work in some way. And you keep your focus on improvement. You keep your focus on helping, and it takes all the stress away from selling. You're not trying to persuade them of anything. You're just trying to show an intelligent person how you can help them to be much better off your product or service. And then you almost allow them to make the decision. I'll present the evidence. Here's the information. And you decide for yourself if this is what you want.
This is a great segue to my next question for you. And you have a section in the book about blending relationship selling, consultative selling, and teaching, which now, with a Challenger sale book out, is popularly been called insight-based selling. But this is something that you've been doing for a long time.
Well, over time, I found that the way that your sales are determined by how people perceive you. And the way that people perceive the highest paid salespeople, the top 10% in the field, as friends and advisors and teachers, is they are friends and that they care about the customer and the customer's well-being, just like a good doctor with a bedside manner. And they are advisors in that they seek to help the customer solve their problems and achieve their goals with good advice related to their product or service area. And there are teachers in that instead of trying to sell, they simply teach the customer how the customer can be better off and can get the maximum value from what they sell. This was, by the way, the various buzzwords like insight-based selling. Everybody's always looking for a different word, but IBM pioneered this 50 years ago. Is they would go in and they would work with clients and they would teach them, and they would send in their experts to teach them how they could get maximum value out of an IBM product. And very often their competitors had products that had far more bells and whistles. But IBM always won the business because they took the time to show them how you, Mr. Customer, will get far more value out of our product than out of the competitor's product, because we will show you. We will take you by the hand and show you how. I mean, if you just take a look at your cell phone today, your cell phone with its apps can do things that you and I cannot even imagine. It's got so many bells and whistles. I mean, if you've got an iPhone, there's two instruction booklets that come with the iPhone that you and I have never had a chance to read. But it'll show you how to do things just with the camera capability that is unbelievable. And that's what makes it valuable, is that we can do so many things with the product. So teaching people how they can be better off also takes the stress away from trying to sell. You're not selling, you're just teaching. And every time you teach a person how much better off they can be with a feature or of what you sell, their buying desire goes up. the desire to own your product and use your product and enjoy your product increases. So you actually sell without selling.
I think that's important. I think that it is about helping people. And when you get to teaching and showing them a path to a result that they haven't seen, then you're giving them the ability to find some way to make a contribution in their own organization. And it moves you to that trusted advisor, friend and consultant position versus I'm here to persuade you. And we have all the tactics and everything that people have been taught to do that, but it's not compelling today. What's compelling is really getting business results. At least that's my view of it from where I sit.
Yes, and go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying if you're talking B2C, you're talking to consumers or customers, then of course you focus on the benefits that they will enjoy from your product or service. And if you're talking to businesses, you focus on the financial results of your product or service. So it's kind of two different thrusts, but in either case, you're still focusing on the outcomes or results of them using your product or service and what difference it will make in their lives or their businesses.
I didn't want to ask Brian about Zig without first asking his permission to make sure that he was willing to talk about that. So here is Brian saying a few words about his friend Zig Ziglar.
Sure, I worked with Zig for many years. He was a very good friend of mine. I saw him shortly before he died. And it's a great shame. He was one of those people that in life you could never say that person is like Zig Ziglar because there was never anybody like Zig Ziglar. He's completely remarkable, unique, different. There will never be two Zig Ziglars. Nobody more or less or like Zig Ziglar. He was a great man. He was a great man, wonderful motivator, beautiful speaker. As I say, I did seminars with him all over the country, year after year. So I spent a lot of time in hotels and behind the stage with him, and so it was a great shame. And he had a great and positive influence on so many people, and some of his one-liners are still quoted by everybody. You can get everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get the things they want. People still remember those one-liners.
We'll never forget them.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. Yeah, I knew you had worked with him, and I do think that he will be missed. He was a giant, and you are in this space too. And I really appreciate you being here and taking time out to talk to me and to talk to our little community here. We're going to point people at Unlimited Sales Success, and I'll point them here to briantracy.com. Anywhere else you want to point people to find more about you and your work?
No, those are the two. Just get the book, Unlimited Sales Success. It summarizes all the best lessons that I've learned in 30 years of selling and working with more than 2 million salespeople. And come to my website. We have free sales newsletters we send to you on a regular basis, and a lot of free things that are very helpful to salespeople and to other professionals.
Just the goal setting work that you do there and what they can download free is worth signing up just for that.
Exactly.
Great piece of work.
Thank you, Anthony. It's true.
And that was the great Brian Tracy. You can find him at briantracy.com. I'm Anthony Iannarino. You can find me at thesalesblog.com. When you show up, do sign up for the newsletter, and I'll see you back here next week in the arena.